Want to turn 100 leads into 15 high ticket clients? Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Let's go. All right, this is going to be fun for me because I get to do a little math. I get to show you the process. I get to show you exactly the steps that you need to take to make this work. And it's the exact system that I implement for my 7-figure coaches. It's really not that complicated as long as you just kind of understand what to look for and how to implement. So let's just kind of get straight into it. Now, before I do talk about it or get too far into it, what this involves is a low ticket offer. Now, look, if you're going to judge that, then you're making a mistake. Low ticket offers absolutely can turn into high ticket clients, and it does it really well. One of the people that I follow for low ticket offers, she's amazing, really. I buy everything that she puts out. I just bought something last week, as a matter of fact. Everything she puts out, I take a look at it. I love it. But one thing she said was that low ticket doesn't work going into high ticket. Now, she may have just been saying that because she focuses on low ticket and didn't want to confuse the issue, and I get that. But the fact is that low ticket absolutely works into high ticket. You just have to make sure you're doing the math right. All right, so let's kind of get into this and let me show you what I'm talking about. All right. Hey, there he is. There he is. Let's see. Get me out of the way. How about that? All right, so this is the process that that you would send people through. Okay. So essentially what's going to happen is they're going to run an Instagram ad or Facebook ad, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Usually it's Instagram. And sometimes we pre-frame your Instagram ads with other Instagram ads, but that's a different conversation. Regardless, once you run the ad, you're going to send them to a VSL. Now, a VSL, I'm going to show you exactly what this is going to look like. I'll do that here in a few minutes. But the VSL is a video sales letter where you're just really going to talk about the problem that these people are having. You're talking about the problem. You're going to kind of cover if your story is the same as what your clients might have, you'll go into your story about it too. But what you're not going to do is cover why you're such an expert and all these other things. And you're not going to cover exactly step by step what they're going to get with your low ticket offer. That's not what this is for. Okay. The video sales letter is really just 3 minutes, maybe up to 8 minutes of addressing the problem from a different angle, like that they're not normally hearing from everybody else, and then leading them to the solution. Now, you will tell them there's a low ticket offer, but you're not going to go into the details what's included with that. That's not the way this works. What'll happen once they hit this VSL page, then they'll click a button that says learn more, or not learn more. It'll say, apply now, or it'll say something like that. Okay. And then they'll fill out a form with their name and email right there. Okay. So they're not filling out a form to watch the VSL. They're only doing it after they watch the VSL with the button on this page. And then once they fill out that form, they'll go to the checkout page. So now, regardless if they check out or not, you've captured their name and email, and you can put them into an abandoned cart sequence if you'd like, which I suggest. So on the checkout page, it's this is not a long sales page. Let's just differentiate that. Now, again, I'll show you what this looks like in just a minute, but it's just a simple checkout page with here's what you get, here's how much it is, here's, input your credit card. That's it. This is for you if, or who this is for, or this is not for. It's none of that. Okay. You're not going to do all that. Once they purchase, though, what's included with their purchase, which you need to make prominent on the checkout page, what's included with the purchase is an implementation call, or you can call it whatever you prefer to, but you can call it a jump start call, or something along those lines to where it will make them feel like, hey, this is part of the deal. What I just purchased, this is going to help me, go ahead and implement that. And that's what this is for. And then when they book that call, then you'll send them to a thank you page once they book the call. Now, you might ask, well, Ben, what about an application and blah, blah, blah. You can try an application if you want, but most of the time, they're really unnecessary for this. Now, you may have some specific requirements where you have to get an application, and I get that, but most of the time, it's not really that necessary. Okay, hopefully that process made sense, and hopefully it seems pretty simple. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at some numbers here. Let me get myself out of the way here a little bit if I can. All right. So let's take a look at these numbers here because I think you're going to like this. All right. Open up my iPad. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's say you get 100 buyers. That's 100 leads. Oof. Okay. So you're getting 100 buyers to purchase your low ticket $47 offer. So about 70% of those, okay, which is equals 70 people, okay, will actually book calls if you position it right. In other words, if you position the part of when they go to the calendar like it's optional or in some way where it might make them think, well, I need to try what I just purchased first before I book a call, you can't do that. The call has to sound urgent. Spots are filling up quickly for this. So this is your implementation call. So we can I can walk you through exactly what to do and how to implement it and make sure to assess your individual needs and that kind of thing. That's how you have to position it. So 70% or 70 people will book those calls. About 70% of those people will actually show up. Okay, 70% will show. That equals 49 people. Okay, so you're going to get 49 people who actually show up for their calls. Now, most coaches, they don't get that kind of show up rate. Not from cold traffic, they don't. And warm traffic, a lot of people don't get that. But if you can get that kind of show up rate, 49 calls, then you should be able to close about 30% of those. If you have a 30% close rate, and then that would give you about 15 sales, give or take. Okay, give or take. So 15 sales, there's your 15 sales right there. Now, what does this work for? Well, this works for people who have a $2,000 offer or above. If you have a lower offer, let's just say it's $1,500 or something like that, this is harder to do because the math makes it harder. So what we want to focus on right now to figure out if the math's going to work for you. And by the way, this works for, I have one client that has a $9,000 offer. Another one has a $6,000, and then a whole bunch of them that have, 3,000 and so forth in that area. And then the 2,000 offers as well. So this works for all these. Okay. It's just the math changes a little bit. So what you need to be thinking about in your head is what kind of return on ad spend do I need to get to make my business work? And I'm just going to tell you, if you don't know, generally speaking, you're going to want at least a 3x ROAS. That's return on ad spend. If you're not getting that, it's not that your business can't work or that you can't make money. It means that it's going to be a lot harder, because if one sale falls through, then that's a big deal. On a 3x, if one sale falls through, it's not as big a deal. So that's why I'm saying it that way. Now you can, and I've had people who've gotten up to a 9x return, but 3x is really what you want to target. And that's really the way it is for most people. And so just remember that's return on ad spend, not return on investment. That's a different metric. Okay, so this is return on ad spend. So essentially you're going to get $3 back for every dollar you spend, right? That's how that works. All right. So I hope this works, because I don't scroll up the screen like that. Actually, I may just do that. All right, there we go. All right, so then the next thing that I kind of want to cover here is I want to talk about the front end revenue, because you are going to be making revenue or generating revenue as this goes. So if you have a $47 offer, okay, times 100 people who purchased it, right? That's $4,700 you made. Not bad, right? That's pretty good. If you do it, now let me just say this, you can do an order bump. An order bump, if you're not familiar, is usually like a checkbox on the checkout screen. Add this thing for $27 or, $15 or whatever it is. Sometimes you want to try to use those and sometimes you don't. You have to test them both ways. My suggestion is go ahead and try it. It's not because you're going to make a huge amount of money with the order bump. That's not really the goal. The goal is to get even more commitment from the person who's purchasing. Okay, that's really what it's for. But let's just say you do an order bump at $27. Now, typically on order bumps, what happens is you're usually going to get about half the people to buy. I mean, that's usually what it gets, between 40 and 60%. If you're getting lower than that, your order bump stinks. Okay, let me just tell you that. So if you got 50 of those people to buy the order bumps, then you've got 1350 in additional revenue. So your total revenue, and we're just going to use round figures, okay? Your total revenue from this out of those 100 buyers is $6,000. So that's pretty good, right? I mean, you've generated $6,000. Just so you know, that is not going to cover your ad cost. Okay, it'll only cover a portion of the ad cost. You might say, well, Ben, why am I doing this to begin with, right? If I'm not going to cover my ad cost? Well, remember, the point is you're trying to get a commitment from somebody. When you can get that micro commitment, you can get a macro commitment a lot easier. When they have money in the game, they show up for calls. That's the point. When they don't have money in the game, they don't show up for calls. But it's hard to ask people to, pay for a strategy session if they've never heard of you, because why would they? They've got a million options and they don't know who you are. So what's the incentive for them to, go ahead and invest in a strategy session? So that's why this low ticket offer is so crucial, right? That's why it has to be so good that they'd be crazy if they didn't take it. All right. So let's kind of get back to this a little bit. So let's talk about what your high ticket offer is. Let's just say it's a $2,000 offer. I want to kind of do a lower number for a lot of people, because I know a lot of people, that's where you are, okay, somewhere in that neighborhood, around $2,000. If you got 15 sales, okay, times 2,000, okay, then you're going to end up with 30,000. Ooh, did that thing add up for me? That was interesting. You would end up with $30,000, okay, right? Plus, you add the $6,000 that you got from the low ticket offer, so you ended up with 36,000. Okay, so if you're at 36,000 right there, let me just go ahead and do another sheet here. If you're at 36,000, what did I say that we wanted our return on investment ad spend to be? 3x. 3x ROAS is what we want. Okay, that's what we're looking for. So it's just math again. Again, that's all we're looking for. So you take 36,000 and you divide that by 3 and equals 12,000. That means you can spend $12,000 on ads. That's the maximum that you can spend. Okay. And so if you get 100 leads, if that's what we need to get those 15 clients, so you take that $12,000 in ad spend by 100 buyers, and you can spend $120 for each sale. Does that make sense? So if you spend $120 for each sale, but you only got $47 back, okay, but the $120 is the maximum that you'd be able to spend per sale. So there are other things too that you want to kind of consider. How can you make that better? Okay, how can you make the numbers work out better? Well, what if your offer was $3,000, okay, versus $2,000? Right? So if you had a $3,000 offer, got the same number of sales, that's about $45,000 that you would generate revenue, plus $6,000 because it would be the same for your low ticket offer. So you got $51,000, right? So if I took that number and I divided that by 3, then you can spend $17,000 in ads. Oops. $17,000 in ads. Okay, or you can spend $170, per call or per buyer. So you can see how that math works. And the cool thing about this is that if you wanted to get a 4x return, or you wanted to get a 5x return or something like that, you can tweak different things. Like you could tweak your offer amount. You could try to increase your closing rate. You can try to increase your sales rate on the VSL. Those are all things that you can work on. But those are the parameters. Now, the thing is you could go down to 2.5. You could do like a 2.5 times return on ad spend, but you probably wouldn't want to go any less than that, because once you get below 2.5x, it's tough to make that work. Now, if you do it this way, you're going to get about a 3 times return. So that's about where it needs to be. So just think about that for a minute. Are you willing to pay $120 a sale? Now, you might be thinking, well, but Ben, I don't have $12,000 to spend. That's okay. Just take the numbers and pull them back with what you do have available. Okay. Use that same thing and say, okay, well, what if I got 5 sales, right? What would that look like? Or in other words, 5 high ticket clients at $2,000. Well, that's 10,000. Okay. So if I wanted a 3x return, I have to be willing to spend about $3,333. So that's how that works. That's how you do the math. So hopefully, I hope that all made sense, because I know I went into quite a bit, and it's mainly because that's fun stuff for me and I enjoy it. All right. So now let's go back and take a quick look at the funnel itself so you can kind of understand it. So let me do this one more time. Get my cheesy face out of the way, and whoop, that's not it. We don't do that, do we? Always do that. Okay. Okay. Actually, let me do this right here for a second. There we go. Okay, so you see, again, let's just go through the process. They run an ad. They go to the VSL. Okay. They fill out a form. They go to the checkout page. They purchase. They get on your calendar, and then they go to a thank you page. What does that look like in practice? Well, so now, by the way, I did this in HighLevel. You can do this in any system. It doesn't really matter. If you do decide to use HighLevel and you don't have a HighLevel account, I am an affiliate. You can click below and get that. And if you do that, I'll share this funnel with you. You just have to let me know that you signed up. But anyway, not a big deal either way. So here's what the landing page would look like. Okay. So again, I'm not selling anything on menopause. I'm just doing this as an example. Okay. But remember, what we want to create with any sales page is urgency. We want to call out the problem, and you want to think about it like, you're doing an intervention here. You're not, trying to, give them a teaching time, a learn more time. That's not what this is. That's not what, webinars are for. It's an intervention. You're trying to interrupt their pattern, disrupt what they're thinking about, and say, hey, if you don't do this now, it's not going to get done. And so you can actually focus on, the time frame that you're going to use to make these things happen. Okay. So it might be, in the minnow belly, weight gain and lose 2 pounds by the end of the week or something like that. It could be as simple as that. And then, you go to the page, it looks something like this. This is really just regurgitating this right here. Now, I will tell you this, I do like having some social proof, like if you've ever been featured anywhere or something, like right in this area. And then as you scroll down, or even if you don't want to do this part, you can just put testimonials. Like if you have a lot of testimonials, put those down through here. But if you don't, then you can just put, this is basically the script for the sales letter. I'm sorry, for the VSL. Okay. But either way, you would want to have testimonials on here somewhere. So now once they click here, they're going to get this and they're opt in. They'll go to the checkout page. Now this looks funny because I don't actually have a product, so it's why it doesn't look right quite here on the right. But so essentially, you just cover again what they're going to get, and here's what they're buying, not who this is for, all that other stuff. And then you can see you put a few testimonials down through here. Simple. They purchase. They go to a calendar. Schedule your included implementation call. I can't stress how important that is. If you don't tell them that this is included, your booking rates, they won't be bad. They just won't be as good as they could be. I have people who book at 80%, 90%, but 70% is a good go by. So once they do that, then they're going to go to a thank you page where you can have a little video and the next steps and so forth. And so then that's really, really about it. That's how this whole process works. And you can implement this, like you could get that set up in a weekend. Like you should be able to do that. Now you might be thinking, well, Ben, what am I going to sell? I don't have a course ready. I don't have this and blah, 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 blah. First of all, you probably do have something ready and you just don't know it yet. You may have a bunch of lead magnets or something that you could take and bundle together. Now they have to be high value, but let's just say you have a lead magnet and it's a bunch of PDFs or something like that. Then just put some videos to it. They don't have to be super fancy. Fancy doesn't work anyway. Be real with them. Okay, because most of your clients, they're living real lives too. They're dealing with their kids in the kitchen, wanting something to eat, they're fixing this, that. Just be, I don't I don't want to say be lazy about it, but you don't have to be as formal as you think you do. And you'll get feedback on it, right? Put it out there, get it going. Stop over analyzing it. Put it out there. If people say, "Oh man, that sucks." Okay, fine, then change it. But until that point, as long as you know it's delivering the value the content is, don't worry about the aesthetics nearly as much, because they don't matter as much as you think that they do. Okay. All right. So that really made sense, or hopefully all that made sense. Now, the only other thing I wanted to tell you is, because you're going to have to run ads. So if you want to know how 7-figure coaches run ads, well, I'm going to show you that on the next video.